The average church service is about an hour, hour and a half, and in these church services, about half of this time will be dedicated to this thing called worship, right? Churches that meet in secret in countries where they're not free to gather, churches in prison, mega churches, mini churches, they all give about 50% of their time to worship. And so you have to wonder, like, is this really the best use of our time? I mean, why do we dedicate so much time to worship? I mean, isn't there something more significant we can do with our time together? Shouldn't we be, doing something more productive with that time? Like, instead of wasting that time singing songs, like, shouldn't we get together and serve the poor and help our neighbors? Like, wouldn't that be more worthwhile? Or does worship matter more than we think? I'm going to answer that question in this video, but before we jump in, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and click on that bell so that you can be notified when new videos come out. And if there are any questions that you have about God, faith, Christianity that you'd like me to answer on this channel, go ahead and ask those questions in the comment section below. Now, in order to understand the significance of worship, you need to understand God's purpose from the very beginning. In Genesis chapter 1, whenever God wanted something, he spoke to what he wanted it to come from, right? Genesis 1:11. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." So when God wanted to make something, he spoke to what he wanted it to come from. God did not say, "Let there be trees." He spoke to what he wanted it to come from. And whatever it comes from, it is sustained by that thing and ultimately returns to that thing. And so God spoke to the ground to bring forth trees. And so trees, they come from dirt, they are sustained by dirt, and they return to the dirt. Genesis 1:20, and God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So fish come from water, they are sustained by water, and they return to water. Genesis 1:24, then God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move on the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And so animals come from dirt, and even though they reproduce, they come from the dirt, they are sustained by the dirt, what comes from it, and they return to it. And so when God wanted something, he spoke to what he wanted it to come from or to be made out of, and what it was made from, it is sustained by, and it returns to. And so here's why this principle is so important, that when God wanted to create man, he spoke to himself. Genesis 1:26, then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness." So we come from God, we are sustained by God, and when we die, we return back to God. Now you may be thinking, wait, I thought God formed us out of the dirt. Well, yes, God formed our body from the dirt, right? So your body comes from dirt, it is sustained by dirt and goes back to dirt, right? My body is sustained by dirt, right? My body is sustained by fruits, vegetables, and ice cream, things that come from the dirt. Now you may be thinking, wait, ice cream comes from dirt? Yes, it comes from cows, and cows eat grass. Cows make milk, and milk makes ice cream. So eating ice cream is basically the same thing as eating a salad. Ice cream is just a really processed salad that comes from dirt. Come on, man, that's funny. I don't care what you say. My body came from dirt. It is sustained by dirt, and it goes back to dirt. But my spirit comes from God. It is sustained by God and returns back to God. Like, what would happen if a plant said to the dirt, "Man, I'm out of here. I don't need you anymore. I'm going to make it on my own"? It would die. And see, man said to God, "I don't need you anymore. I'm going to make it on my own." And God said, "The day you do that, you will die." Now, their bodies didn't die because their bodies come from dirt. You know, people always say, how come Adam didn't die when he ate from the tree? Well, when God said, "The day you eat of it, you will surely die." Well, they did die, just not their bodies. Their spirit died. Ephesians 2:1, it says, "And you he made alive who were dead in your trespasses and sins." See, apart from a relationship with God, you are dead spiritually because you were created from God to be sustained by God. You were created for a relationship with God. This is why God made you in his image and his likeness, so that you could have a relationship with him. God made you to be a replica of himself. See, before the fall, Adam looked like God. He talked like God. He acted like God. He looked just like God because he hadn't sinned. And yet, Adam has this desire that was not fulfilled. Genesis 2:20. So Adam gave names to all cattle, to the birds of the air, to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper comparable to him. See, if Adam couldn't find a helper that was comparable to him, then it means that Adam was looking for a helper that was comparable to himself. Adam was looking for a companion, someone he could share his life with. And Adam looked through all the animals, but he couldn't find one. And so he goes to sleep, and while he was asleep, God made woman from the man's rib. And Adam wakes up and says, "Whoa, man." Right? Genesis 2:23. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." Woman in Hebrew means Isha, which means out of man. So God made us out of himself for him. And God makes a woman out of man for man. Well, how did God know that the only thing that would satisfy Adam's heart was something that came from himself? Because God had the same desire. God wanted something, so he made you in his image and likeness because you are the only thing that can satisfy that desire. That is why God created you, to satisfy the desire of his heart. God wants to share his life with you. He wants to have a relationship with you. He wants to love you, and he wants you to love him in return. Like, this is why God created you with a free will, because only a person who is free can love, right? Only a person who is free, who has a free will, can love. A robot can't love. And so God gave us a free will so that we can choose to love God. And that is worship. Worship is how we express our love for God. See, God's love language is words of affirmation. The word worship means to ascribe worth. And it's in worship that we tell God how much he means to us. This is what God wants more than anything else. It's our love and adoration. See, it's in worship that we give God the one thing he desires the most. Now, I know that this concept is hard for many people to grasp because they think, man, this is God. God doesn't need anything. He's God. God doesn't, need anyone. But God created you because he desires to have a loving relationship with you. And he wants you to express your love and devotion to him. I know it's crazy to think that we have something that we can give God, but we do. We can give God our worship. At my church, people often say, "Oh, I love your messages, but I don't really get a lot out of worship." And I say, well, that's your problem. You aren't supposed to get something out of worship. You are supposed to give something in worship. Worship isn't about you. It's about him. In worship, we come to give thanks to him. We come to give him our love and adoration. And that's why worship matters. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor and smash that like button. Share this video with a friend. And if you haven't already yet, subscribe to this channel and let me know your thoughts about this video in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. And remember, if it's not good, God's not done.